And we are back live here once again on NFL Daily. I am Tom Downey, producer Chris Daughtry behind the scenes for today's live show. As we get into all the latest around the NFL, there has been the final NFL head coaching hire locked up and signed, sealed, delivered, barring something really weird that we haven't seen in a very long time. Kellen Moore is the next Saints head coach, wrapping up the head coaching carousel. Grade this hire for me. A, B, C, D, or F, fresh off a Super Bowl victory. Kellen heading down, or I guess staying technically. Well, he left, but still going to be in New Orleans for his next game, just like his last game with Philadelphia. Grade that hire for me. A, B, C, D, or F in the comment section of today's show. Right now, 44% of the audience, 45% voting A, 38% voting B. It keeps fluctuating between 44 and 45. 13% say C, and 4% say D or F. Brian Pearson says A. Gaming Wizard says B. Schottenheimer says F. More F. Yeah. Fucking Kellen Moore today, at least on this for the time being. On that front, I will say this about the Saints job. I think that's a tough job. They're overdue to kind of embrace a rebuild. I get why they didn't do it immediately after Sean Payton left. I think that probably would have been smarter for the organization. But they'll have to figure that out and have some patience. I think if they're smart, they kind of embrace a rebuild and try to get a new young quarterback probably next year as opposed to this year. Don't know the contract details on that one, Brian. In most cases, NFL contracts are 5 years. Sometimes they're longer. Occasionally they're shorter. But the typical kind of like baseline is 5 years. Is that front there. So grade that higher. A, B, C, D, or F. Shelley says B. Rafe says B minus. Saints are in a bad spot. Not a great spot for new head coach. Time in the Buckeye has A in there. All right, where do you guys think Aaron Rodgers will play in 2025? We're back on this one again somehow. Cyclical nature, I suppose. Where will he play in 2025? It ain't going to be with the Jets. Excuse me. That race done been run. Jets are not going to bring him back. There's also another report today from I think it was The Athletic of the Jets told him, hey, you can come back. If you come back, like you're not doing the McAfee show anymore, and you're just going to not do any of the you're going to be there for training camp. I don't care much about the McAfee side of it. Like that's just an interview. Who cares? Like that's players do interviews all the time. I think not being there for training camp was kind of bad though. Come on, man, you got to be there. I mean, you had a pre-planned thing. Come on. Where will we play in 2025? I see Colts. I see Vegas in there. Vegas would be interesting. I don't know how Aaron Rodgers and Pete Carroll could either form like the greatest buddy cop comedy duo ever, or they would just like hate each other. And I don't know which one it would be. I think the Titans could make some sense. I think the Steelers could make some sense. Which, again, Tomlin and Rodgers could also be like great friends, or it's just like weird chaosness of that one. So let me know where you think Aaron Rodgers will play in 2025. Brandon says the Vikings. It'd be funny. Have to include them on the list, right? Kevo, $5 super chat. Thank you very much, my friend. We'll put this in the mailbag, too. Says Cowboys fan here. Draft Genty. Trade for Devontae Adams. So I'll say this on Devontae Adams. With his contract, much like Aaron Rodgers, I don't think he's going to get traded. I think it is far more likely he ends up getting cuts. If and when that happens, we have a real conversation on that front there. Genty has a chance to be there for the Cowboys in round one. No doubt about that one. Pick a QB for me. We'll talk draft. We'll go through Dane Brugler's latest big board here. SS for Shedeur Sanders. CW for Cam Ward. Very different quarterbacks. Maybe we'll have similar-ish grades across the NFL. I think different ceilings and floors mixed in there as well. Who would you rather have? SS for Shedeur Sanders. CW for Cam Ward. CW from Gaming Wizard, Edwin Westby, Time in the Buckeye. Shedeur votes from Tatey, Eric Simmons. DC Gambler One's got CW in there. If you want like someone to just like execute your offense and like we want you to do this on this time within the structure, within the timing, throw it to the playmakers, be a distributor, like that's Shedeur Sanders. I remember listening to Chip Kelly was asked years ago, like who is your ideal quarterback? This is back when he was running that tempo offense when he was really aggressive. It's It's like, who's your ideal quarterback? And he like responded with like Chris Paul or something. Because he just wanted a distributor. He just wanted someone to say, okay, ball's going here, it's going to be out, it's going to be on time, it's going to be all of that. That's Shedeur Sanders. Now, if you want someone to make plays out of structure and deliver explosives and be a big play creator, that can be Cam Ward. The downsides are kind of the opposite of their strengths. Like for Shedeur, the overwhelming athletic skill set is not there. He's not a top-end athlete. The arm is by no means incredibly strong either, but I think he can be a good executor of your offense. Cam Ward will sometimes hunt for the big play too much. He'll be not aggressive enough. I do like Ray Foreman's comment too. Shedeur to the Raiders, Cam Ward to the Giants. I like that fit. I think that makes sense. I think both quarterbacks I think can fit decently with what that coaching staff I think wants to do. All right, congrats are in order to the Philadelphia Eagles for their Super Bowl championship. Will they repeat next year? Not only just repeat, the NFC East winner has never won it in back-to-back years, in like 20-something years. Is this the season? Y for yes, N for no in the comments section of today's show. Do you think the Eagles end up repeating as champions? It's really hard to do. It's really difficult to execute. Don't let the Chiefs got their butts kicked and they're going for a third one, right? They managed to win 2 in a row, which required overtime. If you don't remember that. Y for yes, N for no. Go vote for me in the comments section of today's show. Gaming Wizard, Ecuador Man, Dane, DC Gambler, Eric, Rafe all say no. Chris Smith says yes. Timon says doesn't think so. If you have not already, do us a favor. Like the show right now. Free, simple, easy. Helps us continue to keep the lights on here at NFL Daily and, of course, at Chat Sports. So please and thank you. Like that show for me. Coming up on today's live show, NFL news, Kellen Moore hiring, rumors, quarterback buzz on Sam Darnold, on Aaron Rodgers. A mailbag as well coming up here in just a little bit. 2 ways to get on the show. Use hashtag NFL. Any thoughts, comments, general venting you want to do? Now's the time to do it. Use that hashtag NFL or Super Chat, like my boy Kevo did earlier. And we'll run through Dane Brugler's latest NFL draft big board. He did 100 players. There's a lot to get to on today's show. Let's begin today's show with some news. The Saints have officially hired, as long expected, Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore as their next head coach. Kellen, I think part of the big selling point is he had an Eagles run with an offense that was mostly led by Saquon Barkley in terms of like being at the top of the NFL leaderboard in rushing. And with the Cowboys, he had been among the NFL's best passing offenses. Saints job stuff, though. That team is probably due for an actual rebuild and not trying to push all their chips in on the Derek Carr contract. So we'll see what they elect to do, because there will be an adjustment period for Kellen as head coach for the first time as well. So grade this hire, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Let's move now to Aaron Rodgers and his future. Jay Glazer, Fox Sports, breaking the news Sunday, Super Bowl morning, or I guess afternoon, that the Jets are going to move on from Rodgers this offseason, which shouldn't really be a huge surprise. Mention a team that's in need of a rebuild. That's New York. 2024 campaign and 2022 campaign, they were not prime Aaron Rodgers. It was not, this guy's a borderline MVP. This guy might win MVP. This guy's a top 5 quarterback. He was like maybe the 20th best QB this year. Maybe. And that might be pushing it a little bit, frankly. And that's a concern as teams move forward. I think there will be some interest in Aaron Rodgers. We will discuss some teams that I think make some sense. But it's not going to be as impressive of a market as it would have been 3 years ago. It's just not. By the way, Rodgers is 41 years old and turns 42 in December. That's old for a QB, for any NFL player. Now, I will say this. The contract matters in these conversations. Rodgers is due a $35 million option bonus before the season. That's not a date paid out in March, just at some point before the regular season. He's got $2.5 million in base salary. So the total cash for the final year of his contract is $37.5 million. Now, the cap hit would only be $9.5. That option bonus is spaced out over up to 5 years, and there are 4 void years left on his contract. so they get the full maximum salary cap spreading, but it also leaves $28 million in dead money in 2026. So that's a lot of money. And I think at that contract cost, I don't think any team will, nor do I think any team should have interest in trading for Aaron Rodgers. That's too much money for 1 year of a quarterback that at this point, it is safe to say he's on the decline. Doesn't mean he won't get a decent contract on a 1 year, maybe incentive-based more than anything. But unless he wants to totally restructure that contract and take a pay cut, which he can just go to free agency at that point and pick his destination instead of, being traded somewhere, I think that makes more sense. So it's not who will trade for Aaron Rodgers, but where will he play, if anywhere, in the NFL in 2025? Let me know in the pinned comments of today's show. The ad comes here on YouTube. Take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Let's briefly mention some top destinations here. Number 5 for me, because you have to mention it, the Minnesota Vikings. It's complete the Brett Favre arc, right? It makes a little bit of sense in the event that Sam Darnold is moved on from in some capacity by Minnesota, but they also maybe just give the reins to J.J. McCarthy. I don't know how much Rodgers wants to be a mentor to somebody. Number 4, the New York Football Giants. Doesn't have to move. Gets to stay in the area. And for a team that's desperate, like the Giants are, going out and acquiring a veteran QB to try to win now and save your jobs might make sense for them, actually. The Raiders at number 3, they are in desperate need of a quarterback. I think that certainly makes some sense. And I don't know how well or how poorly Rodgers get along with Pete Carroll, but worth mentioning there. The Titans, Rodgers has landed in Nashville, was linked pretty heavily the last time he was available in the open market. And if they don't want to take a QB in round 1, they could trade down and give them some semblance of stability. And the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 1, because there's some uncertainty there about Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. And it also is worth mentioning on some of the betting odds out there, Pittsburgh, the number 1 destination for Rodgers. Raiders at 2. I don't buy the Niners at plus 350. I think that's a sucker's bet based on some previous buzz in years past. I think it's far more than they ended up paying Brock Purdy. Minnesota, plus 400. Tennessee, a plus 700. I think that's actually pretty decent value. Today's show is made possible by Z Biotics. They are the inventors of the first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. The pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Remember to drink it before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. I am no longer the same young, spry chicken I once was. I am up there in age, and I can't hang the same way I used to. That's why I find Z-Biotics incredibly helpful these days. Go to zbiotics.com/chatsports or scan the QR code on screen to get 15% off your first order when you use code CHATSPORTS at checkout. You can get a subscription using the code so you can stay prepared for the time or the occasion. They're backed by 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/chatsports and use code CHATSPORTS at checkout for 15% off your order. A big thank you to ZBiotics for sponsoring this episode and our good times. Let's stick with the quarterback buzz here. Adam Schefter linking the Raiders as a potential top destination for Sam Darnold this offseason. And the Darnold free agency intrigue, I think, will be among the better ones in the NFL because he played very well this year. Franchise tag's expensive. Minnesota spent a first-round pick on a QB this year. Maybe he's on the open market. Maybe they work out a tag and trade, which we don't see that often, especially these days. Makes it interesting for a free agency class that's maybe not the best. Here's what Schefter said. One team that I would watch with Sam Darnold moving forward would be the Las Vegas Raiders. I think at some point in time, they're going to have some interest trying to bring Sam Darnold to Las Vegas. We'll see if they can make that happen. So Darnold will command probably sizable interest in the open market this offseason. Where do you think he'll end up playing in 2025? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Now, let's talk about the Raiders here specifically. And no disrespect intended towards Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew. They're not long-term answers. They've never been long-term answers. receivers. They're stopgaps. They're backups at best. Darnold would be a big, but frankly expensive addition and upgrade, though, at the quarterback spot. I think Darnold would fit in the more modern Chip Kelly offense. He is not the same guy that was with Philadelphia that just ran tempo nonstop and one of the mobile QB at Oregon. He has very much adjusted his game planning. And I give him credit for that, too, by the way. But the Raiders have the money. They got $92.5 million in projected salary cap space. If they want to, they can make it work. But the Vikings have a control piece here, a point of ability to control the Darnold future, the franchise tag. Now, that projected number per over the cap is $41 million. That's a lot of money for 1 year of a quarterback, and you don't get any ability to be creative with how you structure that contract. Now, the Vikings have J.J. McCarthy. I believe they're very high still on McCarthy, and I think there had even been buzz pre-injury. He might have won that starting job. Ended up working out great in the end for Minnesota. Can they work out a tag and trade? The danger is if you tag him and he signs it and they can't find a trade partner, now you're stuck holding the bag. So it might be more of a collaborative effort between the Vikings and Darnold, or they let him walk and get that third-round comp pick. We'll see. More on Darnold to come, but if you haven't already, hit that sub button, youtube.com/chatsportstv. Free NFL videos each and every single day, plus NBA and more. Was quite the turnaround for Sam Darnold, who he was not good in Carolina. He wasn't. He really struggled. And he didn't really play very much at all in San Francisco. And then you finally kind of saw some of the upside, the talent, the perceived talent that we all thought, this is what people thought, he had coming out of USC this past year for the Minnesota Vikings. He played well. Now, he did have some issues down the stretch. In particular, he took way too many sacks. And sacks don't show up in the interception stat sheet. They don't show up in the completion percentage. They don't show up in the yards. But those were drive killers. And those were big issues for the Vikings and Darnold down the stretch this season. In the end, I do think Darnold gets a pretty massive contract. That Baker Mayfield deal is completely doable and adjusted for salary cap inflation. And now we're talking he's going to get at least $35 million a year on a multi-year deal. And it could easily be $40 million or more. It could get out of control because the supply and demand favors Darnold. The quarterback class is regarded as not a great one. There are real concerns there. And beyond that, there's not a lot of good free agent options either. And there are QB-needy teams. The Jets are obviously not going to be an option for him. But the Raiders, the Giants, Browns maybe, the Titans, the Vikings themselves, there's going to be interest in Sam Darnold. And it could be a surprisingly large contract. And if you want to get really crazy with it, you could always see a crazy Rams trade Matthew Stafford and bring in Sam Darnold if you want to get a really wild idea out there. We'll get to a mailbag here on NFL Daily. 2 ways to get on the show. Use hashtag NFL or skip the line altogether via a super chat. So I see David's asking about Bears offseason moves. Got to use that hashtag NFL. Else, producer Chris cannot find your question. Otherwise, you're just kind of stuck. Sorry to mention the Steelers for Darnold, too, by the way. Last cut, my bad. Otherwise, you just get buried in all the comments that come in. So you got to use that hashtag NFL to skip to get your questions in the queue. Otherwise, Chris is just going to be left trying to search and scroll, and it's not even set up to filter. That's kind of the filter that's applied, so the bots don't get involved, and the comments we put in there don't get involved. So use hashtag NFL. Hashtag NFL. I say hashtag. Whatever I said was not right. It sounded really, really weird. Hashtag NFL or Super Chat. Skip the line altogether. So, again, get those in. We'll also get to Kevo, or Kevo, however you pronounce it, my friend. His Super Chat question that came in on the show as well. I see Mike and Adam and Ecuadorman and Locura, Skylar, all in there. Keep the questions coming. Eric, it's great. Appreciate the guys. A lot of good ones in there. Very kind. Thank you. Makes Chris's life a lot easier, too, by the way. So get those questions in via hashtag NFL or skip that line via Super Chat. Everything good over there? Okay. Well, yeah. Kind of need him in there. So Otherwise, we're in trouble. Use that hashtag NFL, skip the line, or switch out. If they're having issues, we could always jump to the Brugler thing, but try and make your one adjustment and then go from there. Every now and then you have technical issues. Good. Sweet. You're good. See, Mike, Eric, Skylar, Locura, Ecuador man, Adam, another Mike, I guess the same Mike actually, Rafe are all in there. Thank you guys very much for all of your questions here on the upcoming NFL mailbag, I should say. Also get to Kevo's Super Chat. Also have a super thanks that came in from CJ Young III, so we'll feature that as part of the mailbag as well. All set? Sweet. Let's ride. Before we get into today's NFL mailbag, I want you to shout out your squad in the comments section of today's show. Who is your favorite NFL team? A super thanks to begin today's mailbag from CJ Young III. This is in reference to Kellen Moore as the Saints head coach. And is he going to lead you to the promised land? Laughs. Thanks. I think the biggest issue for the Saints is probably not the coaching stuff. It's that team is not equipped to win right now. If I were the Saints, and we'll see what they do, and that's not their MO, I would embrace a rebuild. They haven't done that in a very long time. They got all through the Breeze era, try to make the Derek Carr era work. I don't think it's going to. I would kind of embrace getting your books in line for the first time in a decade at this point. Do a 1 or 2 year reset financially. Figure out what you're going to have roster-wise. Let Kellen Moore learn and grow in the job, and then go be aggressive again in a couple of seasons. A super chat from Kivo. Thank you, my friend. Cowboys fan here says draft Genty and trade for Devontae Adams. I will say, with the outsized Devontae Adams contract, it's way too much money for him. I do not anticipate him being traded. You can look at the Devontae Adams deal. He's owed like $36-something million this upcoming year. Almost $37 million. It's a lot of money. I don't think an NFL team is going to be interested in paying him that. At least not for 1 year. You can restructure, but then you just push him down the line. I think it's far more likely Adams gets cut. And in that case, Cowboys and others should have interest. He can still play. And Genty in round 1, it's a popular mock draft pick for a reason. Adam Dent, what do you think the Panthers' main priority should be, and who should they sign this offseason? Okay, good question. I think part of this is we're kind of all in on Bryce Young, trying to make Bryce Young work. I think you want to figure out if you're going to do Austin Corbett, like internally first and foremost. I would like to get another playmaker. I know you spent a first-round pick on Xavier Legette. I know you have Adam Thielen. The Cokeheads are my guys. That's Joe Coker, in case no one knows what I'm talking about. Otherwise, that sounds really weird on an NFL show. I think you want to get another playmaker, and you have to throw some assets at defense too. That you kind of robbed Peter to pay Paul to an extent, and traded away some of your better defensive players, on from some of the guys like Brian Burns. You need to get more defensive talent. I would. Unless Ted McMillan's there in round 1, I'd probably draft defense in some capacity in the first round. I look at the safety room and go, I don't like this group very much. I would be interested in throwing money at like a Javon Holland, at a Trayvon Merrick potentially as well. From Carson, not to mention edge help is needed pretty badly too in Carolina. The Cowboys trade Micah. I don't think so. I know there was the NFL Network report that kind of screamed classic Cowboys getting attention on the Super Bowl day and NFL Network getting their views and clicks on a game day, as we've seen a lot in the past with between those two groups and organizations. Also comes on the heels of Jerry saying like 2 days earlier he wants to pay Micah, and Micah saying he wants to get the deal done ASAP. So it just doesn't pass the smell test enough for me in the end. Now, what do you think the Cowboys should do with Micah? If you're a team that wants Micah, you can type in T and try to will it into existence. It's fine. T for trade, P for pay. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Eric, will Aaron Rodgers be a starting QB in 2025? Yes. Now, he could retire. That's an option. I don't think he wants to. I think maybe there's at some point going to be an awakening for Aaron, or at least a rude awakening of, hey, you got to do the team stuff first, not all about you. But I think he starts somewhere. Does he finish the year as a starter? Who's to say at his age? but I think someone gives him a chance to start in 2025. From Mike, Nintendo Master, where do you think the biggest free agent what do you think will be the biggest free agent signing or trade? Ooh. I mean, obviously, big names like Deebo Samuel and Myles Garrett and Cooper Kupp are now heavily being involved there. I think trade-wise that I haven't heard a ton of buzz about, I could see something happening in Seattle with DK Metcalf. I could actually see a trade happening there. Otherwise, it's probably extension time for DK. Or they dump Tyler Lockett. I think Seattle moves on from one of those receivers this offseason. Signing-wise, I think Trey Smith is going to get an unbelievable amount of money from somebody in free agency. Unless the Chiefs franchise tag, which they might, but it's just all O-line money, so you're paying him tackle money, and at that point, they might not want to do that. But I could see a team like the Bears, the Patriots, throwing money at Trey Smith. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. All-Star Weekend is almost here, and it is the best place to win cash while watching your favorite players during the game and the Saturday night events and all kinds of good stuff beyond just All-Star Weekend for basketball and all that's to come on that front. And also, MLB, baseball, just around the corner here as well. You can get in on the action. My boy Jack Lauderay, our baseball expert. Bit of a homer pick, I think, with Duran, more than homers. But I like the more than on season-long Prize Pick slates because if they're healthy, they almost always get there. I also love the flex play. That way, if you get one wrong, you can still come out on top. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after that first $5 lineup. LaCour Victor, what will New England do with all the cash they have this offseason? Big spenders or big savers? Mike Vrabel's coming in. They're not bringing in Mike Vrabel to not try to win quickly. They have the quarterback in place. They have Drake May. So I would expect spending by New England. Maybe not like the Dan Snyder era Washington football team spending where they just get reckless with it, but a receiver, offensive line help, defensive help. They've got the ability to spend. It's not a loaded free agency class, but there will be players you can throw some money around towards. Skyler, Carolina should sign Charvarius Ward. I actually like that one quite a bit. I don't know what Ward's market's going to look like because he dealt with so much tragedy last season that he kind of just, I don't think he wants to go back to San Francisco. And I get that. At some point, the human element overrides the football element. Corners a need for Carolina. Mike Jackson's a free agent. I like J.C. Horn a lot. I think there's some question marks around the rest of that roster. So, yeah, I'd be totally down adding him. Eric, where will Sam Darnold play in 2025? We can go to my top destinations here real quick if you want to, Chris. I look at a team like Pittsburgh. Stands out to me as a prime candidate. That was the Rodgers one. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. I think Pittsburgh is a prime candidate. I think the Raiders could make some sense. I think Tennessee, if they want to try to win sooner than later, which maybe isn't their best path. Minnesota return always makes some sense. Dark Horse Giants, if they're trying to save their team a little bit. Although maybe Darnold doesn't want to go back to New York. There will be plenty of interest in Sam Darnold in free agency. There's just no way that given the general need of teams that just have quarterback question marks and got to get something figured out from Las Vegas to Pittsburgh to New York. I doubt the Browns spend that amount of money. That seems unlikely there. It seems like a more likely destination for Kirk Cousins. If the Rams move on from Matthew Stafford, that's a fun dark horse fit as well. I'll shoot my shot and say Pittsburgh for Darnold, Tennessee for Rodgers, but it's not an immensely confident prediction. Ryan, is a Derek Carr trade in the cards this offseason? I had to make sure I emphasize that word properly. Technically, yes. Reality, probably not. I think there's interest in Derek Carr if he gets cut. Derek Carr is owed $40 million this season. I don't know if they really want to do that. I don't know NFL teams like, man, you know what we should do? $40 million for Derek Carr. Salary cap's rising. It's not as much as maybe it sounds like it is. That's a lot of money. That's starting quarterback money for a guy coming off an injury and has kind of just been like a good-ish starter for the majority of his career. He's never been a top 10 QB. Want to pay a premium for that? I kind of don't want to. What do you think the Saints end up doing with Derek Carr? K for they keep him, C for they cut him, T for a trade. Mike, where do you think Debo will play next season? I don't think San Francisco. At some point, Pittsburgh will get a wide receiver. So as I put him number one on my Debo destinations list, I'll go with Pittsburgh as well here. Cali Lama, if neither Carter or Hunter are available with the Patriots for 4, who should they select? Or do they trade down? That's a great question. I think the Patriots would love to see 2 quarterbacks go off the board in the first 3 picks. They want a non-Giant to jump up with the Titans, or Titans to take QB. That'd be ideal for them. If both those guys are gone, I think they would like to try to trade down. The issue is, I don't know who's going to jump up. I don't know how much interest there's going to be in moving up for. I like Mason Graham. He'd be my best player on the board at that point. I don't know if anyone wants to jump up for Mason Graham significantly and make it worth the Patriots' while. So they could just take Graham, or they just take the best available offensive player. That could be Will Campbell. That could be Ted McMillan, T-Mac, and they just try to build around Drake May. Now, if you have not already, hit that sub button. YouTube.com/chatsportstv for more free NFL YouTube videos. Rafe, if Nick Cali performs, D'Amico fills holes, and the defense stays dominant, next have to be a top 15 in the NFL and are Super Bowl bound. I think they have the ability to do all of that, and I think that you're checking off the box, right? The OC and the offense get better, the defense fills some holes, and D'Amico helps adjust the roster. Defense stays strong. That's in the range of outcomes, absolutely. But I think they got to adjust the offensive line, and they do need better, I think, coordinating from their new OC. Papichulo sits. Injured to get a previous year redraft. Maybe. I won't guarantee or commit either way. It's on the list of potential segments we can do here. The issue we always run into is when it makes sense to do that, there's always free agency stuff going on too. That's a little bit more relevant. So we'll see on that front. Frank, should Jackson Dart go in round 1? So Dart will almost assuredly end up as my number 3 QB. I do want to say that. I'm not trying to be a hater here, but I just don't get it. He's got a good arm. I saw some NFL writers saying he's the next Josh Allen, and I'm like, no. Like, what are we doing out here? He's not the same level of athlete. He's not the same arm strength. He wasn't asked to do the same things. I have the same concerns or positives. I do like Dart. I think that is a good developmental quarterback who I think should go late day 2, early day 3. It's not to the same level of like, let's put Matt Corral in round 1 mock drafts. Because I think that Dart offers better off-field stuff than maybe Matt Corral did for Ole Miss. I think actually maybe a lot more. And if you're looking to develop someone behind an established starter, I actually think that could make some sense. But he wasn't asked to like read out offenses at Ole Miss. That was one read stuff, and he wasn't even that great at playing on time either. Had to improv a bit more than I think Ole Miss would have preferred. He can do that stuff, but it's going to be harder at the NFL. So like round 1, no. Day 2, late day 2, okay, sure. I'm fine with that. Now, how many QBs do you think end up going in round 1 of the 2025 NFL draft? You just put me down as a hater of this draft class. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. But let me know how many QBs go in round 1 this year. HoofTube, could the Seahawks trade DK in the 2025 first from Myles Garrett? I think what they would more likely do is reroute Derek or DK Metcalf somewhere else to get more draft picks. If the Browns trade Garrett, it is a rebuild. They should not try to win without a top 3 edge in football. That doesn't make any sense. So DK doesn't help them at all. And it's actually more money that they have to pay him. So I don't think that intrigues the Browns. You send DK somewhere else, get more draft picks, then it could make some sense. Adam Dent, where do you think Wyatt Millum will go? That is the West Virginia offensive lineman. I think he goes some point somewhere on either mid to late day 2 or early day 3. I didn't put him on the Senior Bowl losers list. I probably could have. I was pretty underwhelmed by his performance there. I think he sneaks in somewhere top 100. Not convinced he's going to go early round 2 like I was, in like October of this past year. I think he plays guard, by the way, in the NFL. So whatever team needs a guard, it's about all of them. I actually think like if he gets down to like the Titans in the 4th somehow, which I think is unlikely, but Titans in the 4th I could see being a good pick there. I wouldn't even be that mad about Titans in the 2nd, frankly, if they trade down. So do you think the Eagles will repeat this year? Y for yes, N for no. Go vote in the comments section of today's show. Do you think the Eagles end up repeating in the 2026 NFL season? Let's have some water here. Too much talking and my throat dries out. Not fun. Y for yes, N for no. Go vote for me. Where else? The comments section of today's show. On this edition of NFL Daily, we are breaking down Dane Brugler's latest NFL Draft Big Board. Now, I will make note, Dane did a top 100 over at The Athletic. You should go check it out. He's got good blurbs, and I think Dane is the best NFL draft insider expert that there is these days. We will just break down the top 50, so this isn't an hour-long video. Now, do you want more 2025 NFL draft vids? I do. I want to keep doing them. If you are among that group, hit that sub button for me right now. We'll group some of these players together. No real surprise at the top. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. Of note, the positions are as listed by Dane. He had Hunter at corner. I think that's his best spot, but he can definitely play both ways and is a very unique prospect. Abdul Carter's an awesome edge. I don't think this surprises many people. Jalen Walker is number 3 here, the edge rusher out of Georgia. This was the big surprise to me. I like Walker. I have concerns about some tweener traits. I am very curious what his final end result, like testing and length, is. I think edge is his best spot. In general, this is going to be a very divisive, controversial draft class. Maybe nothing is more indicative of that, of like Walker being 3 on Dane's big board, and he's like in the 40s or 50s on PFF. Massive difference there. You never see that very often. 3's high for me, but 40 is way too low. Number 4, Mason Graham. Number 5, Ashton Genty. I think on a lot of the consensus quote-unquote boards, you'll see these guys around there. Mason Graham for me is number 3. Genty, at least for now, is number 4. Will Campbell, number 6. T-Mac, Ted Rowe McMillan, number 7. Again, this isn't overly surprising. I wonder if Campbell is like better at guard or center with some arm length concerns, but he's a very high IQ football player. McMillan is built kind of like Drake London, T. Higgins, and moves a lot better than most guys that size do. I am a big fan of Armand Membu. He was not on my list like going into this year, but I kept watching him at Missouri, and I keep going, I don't have like downsides here. Like, he gets beat a little bit on the inside. I don't know if he's going to be an elite power blocker. He's short. Like, that's like, you don't find many 6'4" tackles, but he has 34-inch arms. I have a first-round grade on him as well. Shamar Stewart. He's a freak athlete. He's 6'5", 281. He explodes off the ball. He moves crazy well. He had 1.5 sacks in his 3 seasons. How? That combination doesn't make any sense to me. So this is kind of like Trayvon Walker to an extent. I remember him out of Georgia, number 1 pick a few years ago. Not number 1 pick worthy, but I think he goes top half of round 1 or around that spot. I'm a big fan of Tyler Warren, Penn State tight end, 6'6", 255, and he is incredibly athletic. He made the Penn State offense go pretty frequently. I am a massive fan of his game. Easy round 1 grade for me. He'll be in the top 10 for me too. How many rounds of the NFL draft do you normally watch? 1 to 7 are your answers there. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Number 11, Colston Loveland. How about that? 2 tight ends, top 11. It's a very good tight end class. I like Mike Green a lot, too, the edge rusher out of Marshall. Again, was not really on my list going into the year, but his dominance was not something you could really overlook. Will Johnson. There are some teams that have some speed concerns, but I watched him be really good at Michigan. He was a bit up and down this year. Injuries are a red flag too, but I think that's got number 1 corner ability. Malachi Starks also wasn't as good this past year. And I think at times isn't an elite like man-to-man guy. I think he's a better like free safety. Let him use his football IQ, his range. But he still has shown all the stuff you want out of like a normal first-round pick at safety. The first quarterback is on the board now. Cam Ward, number 15, out of Miami. It's funny, he played like in a wing tee offense in high school. You know that? It was like not, and now he's just a gunslinger. It's like he didn't get to throw the ball ever, and now it's like all he wants to do. It's kind of funny. There is explosive playability here, and some downside of holding the ball too long, being too much of a gunslinger. All right, 16 through 20, Michael Williams out of Georgia. The ankle injury was a real issue. If you can trust there's better pass rush stuff, he's worth around 1 pick. Otherwise, it gets dicey. But the traits are there. Josh Simmons was, I think, the best tackle this year in college football, but he only played like the first month and change of the season before he got a knee injury. That stuff's got to be vetted. Tyler Booker isn't going to be like a household name. He's a guard, but he's mean, powerful player that in kind of a divisive class just feels like a safe starter day one. Derek Harmon out of Oregon. The DT rankings are going to be divisive too here. I thought he had a great year for Oregon, though, transferring over from Michigan State. I am a big fan of Luther Burden. He wasn't nearly as good as he was back in 2023, but the entire Missouri offense had some issues there. I think quarterback play was a big factor in all of that, by the way. But as a yak creator, that is the type of guy that I think has a lot of value in the modern-day NFL. Today's show is made possible by Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics is the maker of the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. The pre-alcohol is what that is. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. The Z-Biotics pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Remember to drink it before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best the next day. I am on the wrong side of 30 now. I can't hang the way I used to. I am a big fan of the help that is provided by Z-Biotics to help me not feel bad the next day. So go to zbiotics.com/chatsports or and scan the QR code on screen right now to get 15% off your order. You can also use code ChatSports checkout to get that 15% off and get a subscription using the code so you can prepare no matter the time or the occasion. They're backed by 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Head to zbiotics.com/chatsports and use code ChatSports at checkout for 15% off your order. A big thank you to Z-Biotics for sponsoring this episode and our good times. All right, other players here. James Pierce out of Tennessee. I don't really trust him as an edge rusher, but he is able to convert speed to power. Or I don't trust him as a run stopper, But he is a really great edge rusher who I like a lot. I think top 20 is where he'll be for me. Kelvin Banks, this is like the flavor of ice cream stuff for offensive linemen. Do you want a powerful run blocker, or do you want a really good pass protector? He's got great pass protection ability. The run blocking is not always there. Jihad Campbell, I think, had a great year for Alabama. I've seen some buzz of people thinking he could be an edge rusher, and he has the juice for it, but I think he's just an off-ball linebacker is where he's at his best. Emeka Ibuka, I love the Robert Woods comp. He seems very primed to be just a really, really good wide receiver, too, for a very long time. Another quarterback finally off the board, or I should say on the board here. Shedeur Sanders, number 25 out of Colorado. He's going to be a little bit divisive. If you want the playmaker, that's Cam Ward. If you want the guy to execute an offense, that's Shedeur Sanders. I think there will be question marks about the leadership stuff for all QBs, but especially for Shedeur, given the oftentimes overwhelming presence of his dad. So pick a QB. SS for Shedeur Sanders or CW for Cam Ward. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Got a lot more names, so we'll pick up the pace a little bit here, so it's not a 45, 20-minute video. Kenneth Grant is going to test off the charts good at the Combine. He is a freaky athlete. I'm curious how Matthew Golden tests, but I think he's a very quality receiver who really kind of picked up his stuff down the stretch for Texas. Nickemon Warrior, another freak. He's listed at 6'3", 225, and he's gonna test so well. And I think that also shows up on film. He had a bunch of pick sixes this year. The size, speed, production is a really good combination there. Walter Nolan, former 5-star recruit, part of a good DT class. Donovan Ezeraku, the edge rusher from Boston College, has very good bend, by the way, coming off. I think better bend than James Pierce, too, here. At 6'2", 248, it might not be a run stopper, but he's got that pass rush juice that teams covet. Excuse me. 31, Josh Connerly, out of Oregon. I think he can be a developmental left tackle, but he's got really great traits and I think potential impact. Medical matters for Siobhan Ravel out of ECU, torn ACL in September. I think does have a chance to go round 1 because of the size and the traits that exist there. 2 OSU players, Tyler Williams, who is just a great run defender. I think needs more pass rush juice. And I will make note, Dane put Donovan Jackson at offensive tackle. I think that's a smart decision. He was really good at left tackle outside of his first start against Abdul Carter. He barely got beat. And that makes me wonder if he is a tackle and not a guard at the NFL level. Caleb Johnson, and we'll go right to Omarion Hampton here as well, 35-36. Powerful backs with some good juice as well. It's a great class here, man. Mason Taylor and Elijah Arroyo, 2 more tight ends in part of a strong class. Taylor is a bit more of like the reliable one. I think Arroyo offers a bit more athletic juice, 37-39. Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State, played college left tackle, might be an interior lineman, if not a center, like Dane's got him in the NFL. Then one of my favorite players, again, it's a divisive class. Jahdae Barron I think he's awesome. He is always around the football. I think he has a great high football IQ. I don't think he doesn't have great length. I question some of the deep speed. I get vibes of like early Lions rookie year Brian Branch. He just like dominated from the nickel. Barron's played safety nickel and outside corner at Texas. I have a first round grade on him. I think he's going to be a stud as long as you just like let him use his high football IQ. So who is your favorite player in the 2025 NFL Draft? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Just a few more players left here. JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State and Jack Sawyer, 41-44. Guys, it'll be probably day 2 picks at edge and being impactful pieces there. Azareye'h Thomas out of Florida State. If you're long and you're athletic and you can make plays on the ball, you normally go pretty early. And no one watched FSU because they were terrible this year. He had a very good season. Carson Schwessinger out of UCLA has a chance to be maybe the first linebacker. I wouldn't count. Then I end up counting the role for Jihad Campbell. Landon Jackson. Look, if you go in thinking you're going to get a base-setting edge who can push the pocket and be a good run stopper, you'll be happy. If you want like an athletic, dippy, bendy edge, you're just going to be disappointed. I am a big fan of Xavier Watts' game at Notre Dame. He's 47. Alfred Collins, another great run-stopping defensive tackle from Texas. Jaden Higgins, after a big gap in the wide receiver rankings here, Higgins checks in at number 48 on Dane's big board. That one felt very noteworthy to me. He's like 6'4", 217. Good size and good body control. It's always a good combination. You can tell he kind of played a lot of basketball growing up, right? He's got that frame and that athletic ability. Trayvon Henderson, the running back from Ohio State. I love his juice. Happy to see him in the top 50. Ariante Ursary out of Minnesota. I do wonder if he's maybe a guard, but he's certainly built like a tackle at 6'6", 339. Also held up better than expected against Abdul Carter. Who do you think Dane Brugler left off of his top 50 big board? We'll get to some names here in a second. But let me know in the comments section of today's show. Some names I want to mention here. Nick Scorton has really kind of fallen. A guy that I thought was going to be a top 15 pick. He didn't have the year I thought he was going to have, and I was very disappointed by that. Benjamin Morrison has medical concerns. 2 hip surgeries now, apparently. That's a red flag. And then there's multiple QBs in the top 85. And I honestly just don't like this class as much. It might be some quarterback value boosting here. Jackson Dart at 57. Tyler Shook at 59. Which is noteworthy because he's 25 on draft weekend. But had like one good year. And there also is medical concerns you got to figure out there. Jalen Miller is a freaky athlete, but he needs like 2 years to sit and learn, I think. Will Howard, I think, could be a really good backup QB, and if you give him a chance to start, he could actually like make it worthwhile there. I think it's functional enough in a lot of his areas. Cam Williams is a gifted offensive tackle, but he needs a year, if not 2, to like develop his technique. It was pretty rough. Also, there are apparently some medical concerns that exist for Cam Williams here too. Deion Walker is what I call a scare-rousing prospect. He's 6'7", 340, and he moves like he weighs like 280. It's insane. It doesn't make any sense to me. But he plays too tall, and the technique has to get figured out. Harold Fannin is down there at 82, despite a very productive year for Bowling Green. And then L.K. Monroe, I am a personal big fan of out of Stanford as well. Before we sign off, grade the Kellen Moore hire for me. A, B, C, D, or F. You can let me know in the comments section of today's show how you feel about the Kellen Moore hire. I see Ecuador Man asking about Joshua Farmer. 88 on Danesmore, which feels about right to me. But yeah, both those guys are good. I really thought Patrick Payton was going to have a big year for FSU, and then he did not. They should be better this year. Those are like 2 of the big bright spots for FSU this past year. So grade that Kellen Moore hire A, B, C, D, or F. And if you haven't already, hit that sub button. YouTube.com/chatsportstv for more NFL offseason coverage right here on the show.